Daith da, Ewi Nakan. Welcome to podcast number 63. Well, 'tis late Friday evening when I'm recording this, and I think 'tis the latest I've ever recorded a podcast, bearing in mind that I release them on a Saturday morning. But we've been terribly busy again this week, and I was wondering whether I'd get time to do it or no, but all things looking good anyway. But I say we have been busy. And another thing which I don't know if I said before, but it's really weird, with the funeral profession, is that we kind of have a few funerals for one area and then you don't go there for ages because you go somewhere else. So it's like, we had a few funerals St Mirren area and then Padstow. We were down Padstow with Dear Gordy again this week. But now it's turned to Indelian and Sundendelian. And we've spent a lot of the week up there this week. I was actually talking to Char this week, and he reminded me of something that used to happen a few years ago now. There were a couple of brothers that used to go to funerals at Indelian, and come the end, I think their mobility wasn't so good, and they used to just park outside the church there in the lay-by, and they had a lovely little knack. What would happen was they would just be there to watch you go into church, and then they couldn't go in, so they'd drive away. But what they used to actually say, as you was going by, they would bow their head to the coffin, and then they would look up and they'd say, "Nice box, Mr. Bray, nice box." And I forgot all about that, but Char reminded me that of this week. And you do miss characters like that. And sadly, this week, we said goodbye to another character from that area, and that's Dear Blakey. And I thought I'd tell a little story about him because he have told it hundreds of times, most probably thousands of times, and was alluded to in the eulogy as well. And it goes back many years ago now. Blakey was a bearer for a funeral we had at St Mimber. And going back then, we used to dress the graves, as we say it. We have grass mat and you put around the graves. And this was for a funeral which we would call where the grave had been reopened. So the headstone been took away, and then the second interment is taking place after the first one. So with the headstone, there is I'd say a 12 inches, maybe a bit more, of foundations under the headstone. So you've got that dip. And when we used to put the grass out, we used to make sure the grass dipped so that you could see that there was nothing to stand on as you was approaching the grave. Now, on this occasion, I don't know whether it was when the chap put the grass out, whether he put it out different or whether somebody had been there and just altered it a bit, but the grass was pulled tight. So anyway, I was on with Father. Father was the funeral director, and he's kind of walking backwards a bit to the grave. And he said telling the bearers, "Right, careful where you're going here." And of course, he kind of half looked back, stood on the grass. Well, of course, it was just nothing underneath, just fresh air. And he went right into the grave, went right in. And thankfully, it was only a reopened grave, and he was out before you knew it. He was in and out. But dear Blakey, he was on the front carrying the coffin. And when he saw it happen, he said to the other bearers, keep going, don't let the bugger get out," which is pure Blakey. It was just brilliant. And I got a feeling 'twas a week or two before Royal Cornwall show. And poor old Father, he had his leg pulled because Blakey told everybody he saw, Blakey told him. And from then on, every time he saw Father, he'd have his hand and he'd do a little gesture from left to right, keep going left to right. And he'd say, keep away from the edge. And Father would say, "You bugger, Blakey." And then a bit later on, he didn't need to speak anymore. When he'd see Father, he'd just do the hand movement and he'd get the same response from Father. But I think a very sad point, which I remember, was when Father's Alzheimer's had kicked in. And of course, Blakey saw Father coming, so he did the hand movement, no response. And he said about falling in the grave. Father, still no response at all. And dear old Blakey looked at me, he said, "He don't remember, do I?" And I said, no, mate, I'm afraid he done. And I tell you what, it broke Blakey's heart, really. It really ate him then. And as he went away, Father looked at me and said, did I fall in the grave? And it was quite sad, really. But I say, it was mentioned on the day at the end of the eulogy. They said, if any of you are going out to the cemetery, make sure you keep away from the edge and don't fall in the grave. So it will be remembered for a long time. So will all his stories. Well, that was Wednesday. Well, then Thursday evening, we was up in Delian again. And this was to rest another dear friend of ours in church, dear Francis. And we went up 5 o'clock and we had a lovely little service there. Well, then I left church about 5:45. And as you will know, the weather had been turned real cold. And it was quite eerie, really, because I came out to the Erse, and the Port Isaac to Indelian road is quite a busy road, really. And it was only 5:45, but it felt like midnight. 'Twas pitch black, the wind was howling, 'twas freezing, and there wasn't a car. A car didn't come by for 3 or 4 minutes, which was very strange, very eerie. So anyway, I got home, I suppose 6:20. I had to get changed, just have a quick bite to eat, because then I had to get back to work, because at 7:15, I had the Roach Young Farmers come, and they come just for a look around our premises. We've done it before for a few organisations. In fact, I did the week before. I had a meeting with the local parish council, and they said, well, where should we meet? Have you got anywhere? I said, yeah, we got function rooms. So they came for the meeting, but they had a look around as well. And obviously, we don't go everywhere. There's places that's off limits kind of thing. But it's just nice that, they have a look around. And we had a lovely evening with the young farmers there from Roach. We're really good. So that was me Thursday, which sometimes, on a Thursday evening, I would record me podcast. So then today we was up in Delian again for Francis' service. And I think I will do a separate podcast on St. Delian Church sometime, because it's a little bit different, that church, and they have these prebendaries. I think there were 4 there today. So I think I'll leave that, for the future. I made a note just to talk about the church, because it is a different church. But I got a lovely little story about Francis, and we used to laugh about it quite often afterwards. We did have a service once, a funeral up at St. Delian, and I had one of my bearers on with me, and he was, early 80s then, I think. And partway through the service, he said, I'm going to have to whip out to go for a wee. So discreetly he went into the church hall next door. Well, what I didn't notice was that almost immediately afterwards, Frances went out. And I didn't see her go out. And what happened was she'd actually gone and locked the hall. But she hadn't checked if anyone was in there. Well, the next thing, Johnny's ringing me mobile. Well, I got it on silent, but he keeps ringing. And I'm thinking, well, I can't answer it. What's he ringing? What's gone wrong? The next thing I knew, I see him come back in church. And of course, Francis had gone, locked the hall, and Johnny he couldn't get out. So he didn't know what to do. And then he managed to actually climb out of a window. And he said there was a couple sat in the car park, and he said the look on their faces to see this chap in his 80s climbing out of the window of the church hall, he said was something that he would never forget. And like I said, 'tis something that Frances, when the new church wardens come on, that was the first thing she said. Make sure there's nobody in the hall before you lock it. So this afternoon, I was late again leaving work. We had a funeral service there at 4:30 at Glyn Valley. But then I come back. I missed the fireworks, but tonight was Weybridge late night shopping. And I thought I'd go down and went down, met Beth. And the lights, they're fantastic again. And every year we got to thank the Davy family for what they put in, with all their volunteers as well, for putting their lights up. And of course, I think the centre is they blue lights there over the level crossing and Gillian's tree there. 'Tis beautiful sight, beautiful, very touching. And We also today, we put up our Christmas tree again at work like we did last year, the memory tree. So if anybody wants to come into work at all, we got little bits of card there that you can just write a little memory or something on, and then, just attach it to the tree, and it'll be there all through December. And I know last year we had donations for Alzheimer's. We'll do little donations for another charity this year. I haven't thought of it yet, but I will. But so we did that. So it was a tale of trees today, but I thought the lights was fantastic. Like they are too down Padstow. I must admit, Ian Doe and all the gang down there, the volunteers, that's looking handsome as well. So 'tis a lovely time of the year. Right, well, I think that's enough of me talking for a while now. So we'll now go on to my little interview this week, which is part 2 of one that I did with David Williams of Lanivet. So we'll go over to Dev now, and then I'll speak to you again directly. So with the rugby then, what position did he play there?
Prop.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So good job you ain't filming this. Look at all the bangs and that here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we tied out prop, and then...
Did Bodmin have a good team back then?
They had a bravish first team. I was mainly seconds, and I quit. And then, of course, they start over 40s, and you creep into under 40s, and then all of a sudden you're back playing in the seconds again, and then you start to realise that I'm getting too old for this. Yeah, I was playing against Penryn one day there, and got creased up in the binging scrum, and that was the end of it, really. I couldn't walk for 3 weeks, so it was time to jack it in. That.
Yeah, when it affects your work and everything, it's quite so good, is it?
No.
So
then, we was on with the bell ringing, and then we started up an handball set.
Yeah.
Clegglow. Yeah, we've been all over the shop with that. That was a good team, they're still going now, but of course, we've buried 3 of them.
Yeah.
So we got to bring on new ones, so it's a different learning curve, really.
Yeah.
But I was ringing competitions with the Old St. Wen, and there again we had a cracking team. We had a lovely team. We had Cyril Brenton as the treble.
Yeah.
You had Fred Rouse second, Tony Liddicutt third, Jimmy Levitt 4, Jeff Thurlow 5th, Bill Pedler on the tenor.
Yes.
And then there was myself and Clevie Reynolds. So when we went up competitions, you would change around a bit. But we've had some damn good ringing matches, really.
Yeah. That's proper bells, that is it? Around bells.
That's the proper bells. Well, of course, Fred and Bill could ring and bells, but even Cyril rung and bells, but that was always not in where we used to go out and do concerts. They used to just muck around in their own towers sometimes.
Yeah. So was Lanivet always your main tower then for ringing yourself?
Well, it is really. That's where I learnt to. I took on as captain there. I don't know. Must be nearly 10 years ago now.
Yeah, I get it.
And every year we have an AGM, and every year I look for volunteers, and every year I get told I'm there until I die. So
hopefully a few years yet then.
Well, that's right. Well, that's if the church keep going, of course.
Yeah.
What with the diocese and that trying to close down all these churches, it's hard because for we in Lanivet Parish, we're the centre of the universe.
Yeah.
I told you that before. We're the centre of Cornwall.
Yes.
It's the main parish church.
Yeah.
It was always the mother church, the Nan Stalin and the Neudrock at one time. Bodmin had nothing to do with it. But now, for wisdom, they decided, no, we'll lump the churches together. And I'm afraid the people we got at the moment are only interested in 1, maybe 2 churches.
Yeah.
But rumours is it's getting a bit that way in other churches as well. So I don't know what's going to happen in a minute.
No. I mean, we've seen with funerals, you speak to people, and the church attendance every Sunday is going down less and less as the years go on, kind of thing. Just all changing, really, isn't it?
It is all changing.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we're going to go with that. We've just got to keep fighting and keep going. A lot of the people want it, but I think most of the problem is through the administration more than the locals. The locals have tried to support as long as they can, and they just get ignored. and then they stop coming.
Yeah.
And in our way, Lanivet, we've had 2 rectories that have been sold, and none of the money come back to Lanivet.
No.
Well, a lot of people, when you go down to try to get money, they say, well, what happened to the money to that rectory? Or whatever the money to that? And then they've stopped coming. And in some ways, now you're talking about 2 generations that haven't been coming to the church.
Yeah. I know when we bought this chapel, I'm sure the money went to Manchester.
Yeah.
And then your local Methodist then had to reapply to get money to do other things. So it's the same in both churches. So one thing I did find interesting, I never realised happened, was that you had ringing competitions, which I never knew that.
Yeah, and not so much now as it was. We still enter the East Cornwall Winter League.
Right.
Ideally, you want 15 teams in it, but I think we've got 13 at the moment. That's not quite so competitive as it was. One time there was 4 or 5 teams that was always really in the mix. Now, really, I suppose if I'm honest, I got to say we're down to 1 team, really.
Yeah.
But I won't mention who that is because otherwise it will come back.
Yeah, yeah, that's how to make friends and influence people, or how to make enemies. Yeah. So, what does that entail then? I mean, you is it just you? Well, all the teams, do they go to a tower at a certain night, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's usually 3 teams of a Friday night.
Right.
You're designated different towers. There could be 3 somewhere this week, and there could be another 3 out somewhere next week, and so it goes on. You do 1 match a month.
I see.
And the rules state you rise and ring for 7 minutes and fall at leisure. So everybody got a timekeeper, and you've got a judge, or sometimes 2 judges out in the car listening.
Yeah. Are you told what tunes to play then? Or
no, 10 tunes are just round ringing. There are competitions for changes.
Right.
We do in Easter Festival. We got 1 section just for changes, which Lanivet won last year. I've just had the shield engraved now.
Oh, yeah.
But most of it is you just rise and you just ring your rounds, and all of a sudden they say time, and it's downward and get them down.
So the judges are just listening for that mistake, or
yeah,
I see.
But no, it's good. I think everybody should do it because you can practice so much as you like in your own tower. But you only listen to your bells, and you don't always take any notice of what anybody else is saying.
No, I see.
When if you go to a different tower, not only do the bells seem different because you get to know your own bells, but when that judge comes in and says that you've got 28 strokes or you've got 30 strokes, you think, hang. The old timers used to say, if you can't get less than 10 strokes, it's waste of time going out.
Get away.
There isn't very many people who get less than 10 strokes these days. But just getting people involved, I always say to all my beginners, just remember, if bell ringing was easy, everybody would do it. So don't come with the thought you're going to swing around like the monks on the television advert, because that don't work like that.
Can it be dangerous then, or no?
Well, I suppose anything can be dangerous. I try to start right at the bottom and getting them rising and falling, so as they got their rope control, they know how to take coils if they lose a bell and one another. Some towers will take them straight from being set. I don't like that way. The hardest bit is the rising and falling.
Yeah, I see.
And if you can get them to do the rising and falling, once you get then to the round ringing, everything is going easier.
Yeah.
If you start them off on the round ringing and all of a sudden they're round ringing lovely, they think, I cracked it. And then you do the rising and falling, that's harder than what was before. They thought they had done the worst of it. And then some will lose art that way.
Okay.
So I start them off on the hard bit.
Good, yeah, that's good.
And, if they find it too hard, then they go anyway, and you ain't wasting no more time, are you?
No, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Do you have your ringers outings every year? Because I know Ecclesia we have famous ringers outings.
Well, we always had ours was a parish outing come ringers outing. And we done it for years, right up until COVID. COVID have mucked up a whack of stuff. Because you wouldn't allow to have one then. When you could, a lot of people that used to go, either passed on or decided no, they got too old to do it, and then so it went on. So tried to get a full coach, and it was awkward. So this year we had a minibus.
Yeah.
And we've done 2 outings with the minibus, and there's all our own ringers, so we ain't mixing very much.
No.
But the good thing about it is we can go to churches and towers now that we wouldn't normally go to with a big coach, because you couldn't get to them.
No, exactly.
And it isn't the same when you all go in individual cars. It's all right, but it isn't the same when if you've got like 15 of you on a minibus.
Yeah.
You can plan a pub for all to stop for dinner.
Yeah.
And the same for tea. And because you're all ringers of the same crew, you're all there together. You don't lose anybody on the way.
No.
Or somebody don't have an extra pint in the pub and the rest of you got to wait.
Yeah.
So
you would, as captain, then you would sort out the kind of, say routes. So you would contact a few towers in a certain area.
That's the worst bit of it. You ring up, you work out roughly where you want to go.
Yeah.
And work out the timings. Because you waste the time ringing up a tower if you don't know what time you're going to arrive. I usually go with Mike Trace. We usually have our maps. We work out roughly what towers we want, and then we'll take a day off and just go look at them.
Yeah.
See what we think of them. Really, when you get there, you see whether the church is run down or whether it's quite tidy. You see what pubs would do food, which is en route, and what time you could be there. So we work out the timings. Then I start to ring up the captains then to see if we can go there on any particular day, and the time.
Quite involved, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's sort of all right. Sometimes everything goes perfect. Yeah, you can fit it all in. Like this year, out round Sinew, we had no trouble with Sinew, but Goran, they already had 3 teams visiting from up country because they got 10 bells there now.
Yeah.
So then there was another tower was going to go. We had to change the route around then because the timings was all wrong for everything, and there's stuff like that, And we've just had a visiting team now from Plymouth. There's 2 teams, but they had 1 trip, and they started off at St Clair, I believe, and then they wanted to ring Liscard. Of course, Liscard couldn't fit them in, so then. They got all of us then to see if they could change our time because they were planning to come down to Wee at, 3:15 or something like that. So then they wanted to come down like 2:00. And then from Wee, they went on to the Noidrock, and then I think they went out Braddock or something like that because
I see. Yeah.
But I don't like it as soon as they say, we thought we'd do another grab, and they do. They just ring because they've never been there before. Well, I never worry about that really. Nice to go around to different churches, but to me, if a church has got a nice set of bells, then I don't mind if we ring them 2 or 3 times.
No, exactly. No, and it amazed me when we went Macclesfield, didn't it? 18 months ago, and as we went up the road, how many churches? I've rung there and I've rung there, and and that was even in England.
Yeah, well, with the Clegglowen. We called our trip Clegglowen, and we must have had 10, 12 years. We used to go right the first week of September.
Yeah. The
first one we ever went was Isle of Wight.
All right.
And we didn't get to ring them all because one of the towers there was being done up.
Right.
So then after that, I couldn't name. I probably got it all home somewhere, but we went like Derbyshire a couple of times. We've been Wales 3 or 4 times. Shropshire, Exmoor, and all that sort of thing. And we had some cracking weekends. We really, and the weather, I think we only had 2 iffy years in all the time we went, as usually a brilliant week at it.
Yeah.
But with the last one we done was Isle of Wight again. And we said, right, this time we're going to do them all.
Yeah.
And I'm darned if the tower we couldn't ring before, we couldn't ring this time.
Oh, no.
So we still never rang it.
Oh, dear. I remember because always there's a pub close to a church.
Always, isn't it?
Yeah. Even at St Brioch, which now 'tis a cottage, and they used to say there the ringers would ring on a Sunday morning, everybody come in, they'd all then whip up the little lane there to the pub and then think, crumbs, the service is nearly finished, and back down again after.
I wish years ago, I've been in Devon somewhere, and they had the definition of bell ringers on the wall. And bell ringing in history was classed as a very dangerous hobby.
Right.
Because they weren't so sophisticated as bells are now, and very crudely put up, some of them. And they used to go to the local pub and pay the people to come over to ring the bells.
Right, I see.
And then they used to ring the bells, and of course then they'd go back to the pub again. And they said that is why the majority of churches got a rear entrance to the belfry. Because most of them used to come in, ring out the back door, and back down to the pub again.
Yeah.
It was never anything to do with the church as such.
No.
It was never a religious thing as such.
No.
The bells were there to call people to church or ring for weddings and funerals, but the bell ringers never used to have much to do with the church.
No, exactly. Yeah. Do we ring for many funerals now? I'd say of course, we don't have so many church funerals now. That's the thing. That's changed, hasn't it?
We tend to ring if it's a real local person.
Yes, yeah.
If it's real local person, they've always supported the village, and that we ring. On some occasions, well, I always approach the families first, because sometimes I just ring a tenor, just ring the one bell, like we hear some of them, they just ring the one bell. But and we usually ring what we call open ringing. As you know, down St Callum last week, they had half muffled. Yeah, I know it was after a Remembrance weekend, but Alan was also so involved with them, and that's what they wanted, half muffled. But the majority of people say we want the bells rung like they should be rung. Yeah, don't want it too solemn. No. So on the whole, you try to ring the same for a funeral as you would a wedding. Yeah, in a way, but there again, it's up to the family. If they ask us to ring and they want half muffled, then we'll put the muffles on. Yeah. And then did you keep ringing right through COVID then, or no? Yeah, I rang one bell every Sunday because we wouldn't load no more than that. We had to have the doors open and all that. And I rang every Thursday night at 8 o'clock for the National Health, for the nurses and all that lot. Yeah. And that is why my nickname seemed to have got round the village now as Ding Dong Dave. Ding Dong Dave. Because I was always at one bell. But we were lucky as COVID started to lift, because we got the 3 ringers all from one family. All the Harrises. You had the John Charles and David and Andrew. Brilliant. So, and we could ring every other bell because that was the 2 metre spacings. So open up the doors. So then we managed to ring 4. Well, then it got to Remembrance Sunday, and so we muffled up and we rang the 6 on that particular one, and we kept the 6 going right up until New Year's Eve, and even over Christmas and everything right through. Then we got the New Year's Eve, and we had another lockdown. Oh. So I went down then and just rung the one bell at midnight like we normally do. Yeah. So that was that then, right up until, what was it, by April, May month, before we could start to get ringing again. Yeah. And then some of the rules was because of the heavy breathing and things like this. So we used to leave the bell set. So then all you had to pull off and ring. I see. Because, there's a rising and falling that, you really start to pant and go. Yeah. But we've now started to going back to rising and falling again, which is causing a bit of contention with 1 or 2 of them, because they've got used to just pulling off the stay. Of course, yeah. And they sort of have it sick a bit of breaking sometimes. Yes. So I got 1 or 2 now that will only turn up Sundays because the bells are set, but they aren't anymore. They're down. We got to rise them every Sunday, the same what we do practice night. Well, thank you, Matt. I think we've covered quite a bit there. Like I said to you, because you're such a youngster, we got future episodes we can record in the future. So I thank you for coming, That's right.
Do you want to just say goodbye to everybody?
Well, I'll say goodbye to everybody and hope I haven't bored you all to tears.
Proper job. And we'll do a few more episodes in coming years. Thank you, mate.
Right on, Dave.
Beauty. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And I know Dev was talking a lot about his hobbies this week, but last week it was more about his working life. And I thought for me Cornish word of the week, I thought I would use the Cornish word for clay, because Dev worked for years for English China Clays, ECLP. So the Cornish word for clay is pre. And then I thought for me Cornish dialect of the week, again, the same sort of idea. John Benalek, I know I was talking to John a while ago, and he was going about Cornish dialect and the waste heap. So when they mining for the clay, and they got this big waste heap, they used to call them the Cornish Alps. Well, the Cornish dialect for that is Clayborough. So that's me Cornish dialect for the week. Right, well, I think that's about it for now. I'm going in bed now. I've got no funerals tomorrow, but I got a day ahead of paperwork by the looks of it. So think of me, won't I? But I hope you've enjoyed it again this week, and I'll speak to you again next week. So wish you well. Do Guinness. Curdo Bisveckan.